Hello, I'm Peter Adams, and I'm your instructor for ACLT 053 EXY. But I'm also your instructor for English 101 EXY. And I made a video for English 101 in which I tell you a little bit about who I am and welcome you to the course. So I would recommend you watch that video first if you haven't, and then watch this one, although it really doesn't matter. You can do it in either order. What I want to do in this video is get comfortable in my chair, and then I want to explain to you what I hope will happen in this course, in this ALP course, that will be very small. The maximum class size is 10. As of today, it's August 23rd. As of today, we have 8 students enrolled. We'll probably pick up 1 or 2 more. And I want to create a kind of an atmosphere, a kind of a feeling in this section that is not always possible to pull off. I've taught ALP, probably 20, 30 times. And I've been successful, I would say, about 75% of the time. But I think this feeling I'm about to talk about is all the more important now that we're having to go to school online, remotely, and we can't see each other face to face. So I want to really talk about what I mean by the feeling of this course, and I want to talk about it by starting with a story about a student I taught more than 10 years ago, whom I'll call Mary. And Mary was an ALP student, so she was in this section and in the 101. And when I teach writing, I very often will select 2 or 3 or 4 papers that students turn in for an assignment and make copies of them or send them electronically to all the students in the class, and have everybody read the same paper by one of their classmates, and then we talk about the paper and talk about what it does really well and what it could do better and so forth. But I always recognize that there are times when there are papers you write that you wouldn't feel comfortable having read by your classmates and talked about in front of you. And so I want you to know that you always have the option to write at the top of the page or somewhere, do not reproduce my paper, and I will be happy to honor that. By the way, when I reproduce students' papers, I always delete the students' names, so nobody knows whose paper it is, although sometimes the writer of the paper gives it away by giggling in the class. So that's the option I gave everybody in this class that Mary was in. We do a lot of short writings in English 101. I call them one-pagers. Often they're even maybe half a page. And we were in about the 3rd week of the semester, and by then we had written 3 or 4 of these one-pagers, and I had copied some of them and given them out, and we'd had class discussions about them. And Mary had written on every one of her papers, do not reproduce my paper. And so I called her aside after class, and I said, Mary, I want you to know that in semesters in the past, when I get my student evaluations at the end of the semester, very often the things students say was the most useful class meeting of the whole semester was the one where their paper was discussed in class. And Mary shook her head and said, I don't care. I'm not comfortable doing that. And I said, okay, you have a right to say that about every paper this semester, but I want you to know you also have a right to change your mind. And Mary assured me that was not likely to happen. About a week later, not in the 101 class, but in this little ALP class, Mary came up to me after class and said, Professor Adams, how come you never copy and give out any of my papers for people to talk about? Needless to say, I was startled. Mary, you told me you weren't comfortable doing that. And she said, oh, that was in English 101. In here, it's just fine. In here, I feel safe. That's the feeling I want all of you to feel, this semester in this ALP section. I want you to feel this is a place where you can take risks. You can take risks in what you say in class. You can take risks in what you write. You can take risks in the questions you ask. I want you to try to feel as safe as Mary felt when I finally found out in about the fourth week of the semester. And we'll work hard to do that. We'll do a lot of work together. We'll do a lot of work in small groups. But what I really have in mind for this class, when I did all that consulting with schools around the country for the last 5 years, they would always say, well, what do we do in the ALP section? And my first answer always was, we do more than this, but my first answer always was, what we do in the ALP class is everything we can think of that will help students pass the 101. That's our goal. I want all 10 of you to pass English 101, and of course also pass the ALP class. But that's the goal, is to pass English 101. I want to talk about one other thing we'll be doing this semester. My experience in teaching ALP sections, in fact, this is almost just as true in teaching 101, is that the most common reason that students are unsuccessful in these writing courses has nothing to do with their ability to write. What it has to do with is their lives, that their lives are very stressful, that they face lots of challenges in their lives, and that things happen that cause them to have to give up and drop out and stop coming to class. Things happen with their finances, with their health, with their children, with their marriages, with their jobs, with the place where they're living. All kinds of crises happen. So one of the other things we're going to do, besides try to make sure you pass English 101, is have this be a place where you can at least talk about those things going on in your lives, and maybe even get some advice from me, if I have any advice on the topic, or maybe from your classmates about how you might handle that crisis. So I want you to know we're going to address those kinds of issues, as well as writing issues and reading issues, and we're going to have a feeling of togetherness, a feeling of trust, a feeling of safety in this class, if I can possibly pull that off. And if I can, it will really depend on you guys helping me to pull it off. Thanks a lot for listening, and I'll see you on September 8th.